The ROG Ally, a pocket-sized computer that can play all of your games. You might recognize the ROG acronym from the phones that keep snapping in half over the years. You know, the ROG Phone 5 and the ROG Phone 6. So while this Ally might be a portable computer that can be taken anywhere, surviving being taken anywhere is a whole other story. Today we'll commence with a JerryRigEverything durability test to see how well it can structurally stand up to everyday life, and maybe we'll even toss in a teardown. Voluntarily or involuntarily, we'll let the Ally decide. Either is fine with me. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Let's get started. Right off the bat, I'm shocked to see this is actually a full-fledged Windows machine. I was expecting a more watered-down mobile OS or something, but here we are. Immediately upon booting up a game, I hear the dual fans spin up on the inside, and it's kinda shocking how hot the screen and air coming out of the fan gets, like almost uncomfortably hot within minutes. Hopefully there's an update or something that fixes the temperature situation, or people are going to have some cooked fingers. In order to see what the screen is made from, we have to perform a scratch test with the most scale of hardness. If it's plastic like on the Nintendo Switch, it'll start scratching at a 2 or 3. If it's sapphire like on the Garmin watch, it'll scratch at an 8 or 9. And if it's glass like we saw on the Steam Deck, it'll start scratching at a level 6 with deeper grooves at a level 7. And indeed, the ROG Ally is using Gorilla Glass Victus. Gorilla Glass is everywhere. The Ally also has something called a DXC coating on top to help reduce glare. You can see that the coating is actively changing the bright white of my desk lamps into a slightly yellower shade, so it is definitely reducing reflections. So far so good. As we know, glass is glass and glass can break, so applying a tempered glass screen protector can help prolong the life of your Ally, just like a helmet prolongs the life of your head. An expendable glass layer can help absorb impacts, so nothing gets cracked or scratched underneath. My channel sponsor D-Brand supplies 2 screen protectors in each box. One of course for installing and the second one for breaking. Personally, I like to buy 2 and break both, but that just might be me. Link is down in the description. I think the RGBs on this ROG are pretty lit. At first glance, I thought the rear strip was also going to be illuminated, but it turns out it's just a cool little color-changing holographic sticker. No complaints though, decor is decor. The grippy joysticks are extremely well coated in rubber. This stuff can't even be sliced off, so no worries about long-term durability here. The direction pad is made from plastic, and the little menu buttons next to the screen are either painted or laser etched. But these icons will probably end up rubbing off, since the image on the buttons isn't all that deep. The top trigger and buttons are both made from plastic. Definitely some nice feeling texture up here. We also have the headphone jack, expandable micro SD memory card slot, and a mind-blowing custom PCI Express port for connecting external GPUs, like the 4090 for extreme gaming or video editing. Huge thumbs up for that. We have the 65-watt USB-C port and the white plastic volume rocker, along with the power button with the built-in fingerprint scanner. Making our way over to the second set of menu buttons, we find they have the same scratchable icons and the same solidly thick rubber on the joystick. Now, one issue I've heard that people have already is with the ABXY buttons. These are getting stuck during gaming. Mine personally feel pretty good, but we'll have to check out how they're assembled from the inside here in a second. The exterior plastic of these buttons is very hard. With a clear transparent layer over the letters, it looks like an epoxy resin table. Kinda cool. My JerryRig knife can only scratch the buttons and not shave anything off due to how hard the plastic is. These will last a very long time, and since the letters are on the inside, they'll never wear away. The RGB halo around the joysticks is made from translucent plastic. Normal LEDs probably shine up into the circle and get diffused by the cloudy material. The bottom corner has another color-changing holographic sticker with the ROG logo. The back panel of the Ally is made from plastic, and the colorful reflective sticker can indeed be damaged and removed, but it probably won't ever be falling off on its own. unless the heat from the console melts the adhesive, because my unit is still abnormally toasty, and I'm not even gaming. There are 2 front-firing stereo speakers, which is nice. Making our way over to the screen, we find that all 7 inches of it is 16:9, 1080p, 120Hz, and an IPS LCD that lasted literally 3 seconds under the heat from my lighter before going black. Normally this takes about 10 seconds, but I cannot stress enough how hot this machine is getting right out of the box. It's so hot it's basically performing the flame test on itself. Hopefully this isn't normal. Speaking of normal, let's continue with the durability test. Since this whole thing is made from plastic, it's hard to know if the Ally will survive. With a forceful bend from the back, we can see that both edges of the ROG Ally start to separate at the corner. Flipping it around to bend from the front, we do hear one little snap, which turned out to be the thin line of plastic near the PCIe and USB-C. But since the screen and the console still appear to be functional, it's looking like the ROG Ally is going to survive. The separation on the corner is concerning, but there is no chance of it actually snapping in half. The Ally is solid, minus the little piece of plastic that broke. Definitely nothing to lose sleep over though. Since we couldn't access the insides with violence, let's try a more methodical method. The ROG Ally has 6 of the longest mobile-sized Phillips head screws in existence that are holding the 2 halves together. And once those are out, we can simply pull the back plastics away from the body. The plastics contain the rear intake vents, covered with some mesh. The back panel also has the rear triggers and back buttons, with some interestingly molded hexagons into the hand grips. We all know that hexagons are the bestagons. Asus has also graced us with a gloriously red motherboard. Why this console is not transparent, I will never know. Hiding hardware this gorgeous should be illegal. I'll unplug the battery and remove 4 screws holding down our tinfoiled covered unit. I decided to disassemble this part first because it specifically says do not disassemble. Underneath the foil we see that our dual cell battery gives us 40 watt-hours worth of energy. The Steam Deck also has 40 watt-hours. The Nintendo Switch, however, which was released 6 whole years ago, has 16 watt-hours. With the battery out of the way, we get a better look at the dual turbo fans and heat pipe, as well as the modular 512 gig M.2 drive. To remove the joysticks, each side has 4 screws and a very small little white ribbon that snakes through the board to power the RGB ring around the joystick. With that unplugged, we can get our first look at the linear vibrator mounted directly to the thumbstick board. So not only is it going to shake the whole unit, but it should get especially vibratory right on the thumbstick itself. And this is true on both sides. There is another equally sized vibrator attached to the opposite thumbstick as well. Balance is a big part of this design. 2 fans, 2 battery cells, 2 vibrators, and even the 2 stereo speakers in the bottom corners. To see how the ABXY buttons are mounted, we have to remove the 9 little black Phillips head screws. We can detach the display ribbon, and before we can shimmy it entirely out of the housing, we do have to remove the black and white antenna wires. They're up on top of the board. And we also have a plug for the loudspeakers on the opposite end. I'm just going to hold this up so we can all appreciate it just for a second longer. The first thing I'll do as President of the United States is mandate red circuit boards on all technology across the globe. One major difference between the buttons we have here on this Ally and the buttons we find on every other controller and console is that these buttons on the Ally are all the same shape, with 3 very tiny equally spaced notches. This means that technically the X could be swapped with the B accidentally. There is an arrow on the back to help the assembler know which direction is up, so the button gets clocked directly and in the correct spot. But with the tabs being so small, it could very easily slip or rotate in its shaft, and even a small rotation can cause the tiny tabs of the button to get caught and stuck. Both the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck have buttons with tabs that are much larger. Asus is probably going to regret making their tabs so small, especially since the buttons already have some play inside of their slots. The rubber that provides the button spring, however, is pretty much invincible, and is how gaming controllers have been made since way back in the original Nintendo days. Overall, the ROG Ally seems to be a pretty sweet little unit. It looks even better on the inside than it does the outside. Yeah, the buttons getting stuck is probably going to come back to haunt ROG, and I'm still not sure why my unit feels like the surface of the sun. Maybe Windows was just being Windows and downloading some updates. I do, however, like that everything inside is modular and super easy to repair, if of course Asus decides to supply parts. The Steam Deck has already provided nearly every single component possible over on iFixit's website, so it would be cool if ROG did the same. With everything reassembled and the back cover in place, it looks like the Ally is turning back on. Thank you Linus for the screwdriver. His screwdriver and my orange Linus knife can be found over at lttstore.com. If you can spot the one thing I forgot to plug in, you'll get an extra internet point for the day. Besides that though, everything looks like it's working great. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.